because today we're going to fundamentally challenge literally everything you think you know about what wealth actually looks like. Seriously, we're about to completely reprogram how you see money, success, and honestly, the people walking right past you every single day.
So I want you to picture this. There's a guy standing right in front of you in the checkout line. He's wearing a faded polo shirt, jeans that have clearly been through, a few hundred washes, and sneakers that probably came from a discount store about 6 years ago, right? Out in the parking lot, he gets into a 2013 Toyota Camry with a little dent on the rear bumper. Now, if you had to guess his net worth, you'd probably say, what, $40,000? Maybe 60 grand on a really good day?
Well, you'd actually be off by about $4 million. No joke, this guy is a millionaire. And once you understand why people exactly like him look absolutely nothing like the millionaires you have pictured in your head, everything about money is going to start making sense in a way it literally never has before. Because here's the massive secret nobody tells you when you're growing up. You know the people posting those rooftop dinners, driving the leased Mercedes, showing off the designer bags on Instagram? Most of them are literally one missed paycheck away from total panic. Meanwhile, the people who actually have real generational money, like the kind of money that casually pays for a grandchild's college tuition in cash, they walk right past you at the grocery store and you don't even bat an eye. And look, this is absolutely not just some wild theory. Thomas Stanley actually spent 20 solid years researching American millionaires for his famous book, The Millionaire Next Door. The data he uncovered completely flipped the script on wealth. And what's really wild is that as we head into 2026, recent studies just keep confirming the exact same patterns over and over again. The data is super clear. The average millionaire does not live in a mega mansion. They live in a totally modest home they've owned for over 20 years. Roughly 80% of them buy their vehicles outright, cash on the barrel, and they hold on to those used cars for a solid decade. Flashy watches? Nope. Most were something that cost under $300. But here's what really matters. These folks felt way more secure, they slept so much better, and had drastically less financial stress than the people pulling in 3 times their income, but, dressing like they had it all. So we gotta ask, why does this happen? Why do the truly wealthy practically hide their money, while people who are barely scraping by broadcast a life they frankly can't afford? Well, the first reason really comes down to a hard truth most people never sit with. Looking rich is incredibly expensive. Let's look at a simple example. Say you buy a $70,000 luxury car. The literal second, you drive it off the lot, it loses about 20% of its value. That is $14,000 just vaporized in a single afternoon. Poof! Gone. Now, take that exact same 70 grand and drop it into a standard index fund. Even at a super conservative 8% annual return, which, by the way, is way below the S&P 500's 30-year average of over 10%, if you leave it there for 30 years, you're sitting on over $700,000. Think about that. Real millionaires feel that math in their bones. When they walk past a designer watch in a store window, they don't see jewelry, they see 20 years of compounding interest just vanishing. It's all about opportunity cost. They've trained their brains to see the invisible cost hidden inside every single purchase, the version of their future freedom they'd be trading away. Most of us just see the price tag on the box, right? Millionaires see the opportunity cost, and that one mental shift changes every decision they make, from their morning cup of coffee to massive life choices. Now, the second reason is deeply psychological,
And it goes way deeper than most folks are comfortable admitting. You see, someone who desperately needs to look rich is usually trying to fill a void. They want to be seen. They want the neighbors to nod approvingly when they pull into the driveway. So they end up using expensive stuff to buy an identity they don't quite feel they've earned yet. But compare that to someone who actually knows their net worth is rock solid. They don't need a fancy hood ornament to prove anything. They don't need a giant logo across their chest to feel valid. Their portfolio does all the talking for them, and they never even have to say a word.
Actually, there's a whole name for this vibe now: stealth wealth. And in 2026, it's grown into a massive movement among the affluent. It's showing up in everything, from how the ultra-rich travel to the jewelry they wear. And it's all built around one core idea: staying completely and utterly invisible. No logos, just quiet, custom pieces.
Old money families have honestly known this for generations. They figured out something the rest of the world just hasn't caught on to yet. Visible wealth attracts problems. Huge problems. Lawsuits magically find you, distant cousins suddenly remember your name, con artists literally put you on target lists. Plus, recent personal safety concerns have really pushed the wealthy toward blending in. But there's another hidden trap here. When you're constantly signaling wealth, you permanently raise the ceiling of what you're expected to spend. The fancier car practically demands the fancier vacation, which then demands the fancier home. Before you know it, you're trapped inside a lifestyle you can never step out of without feeling like a total failure. Millionaires just avoid this whole mess entirely, which gives them something almost no high spender ever gets: actual room to breathe.
Which brings us to the third reason. And honestly, this is the one that changes lives once it finally clicks for you. High income is absolutely not the same thing as wealth. Not even close. This is exactly where so many people get completely financially wrecked. They see a buddy pulling in a massive salary and automatically assume, oh, they've made it. But think of income like water flowing through a pipe. That's all it is: cash flow. That is exactly why a $400,000 earner can be totally broke, incredibly stressed out, and literally one bad quarter away from total disaster. The water is just rushing right out the other end. Wealth, though? Wealth is the water that actually stays in the bucket. It's the middle school teacher who quietly invests 15% of their paycheck for 35 years and walks away into retirement with $2 million, zero debt, and total ownership of their time. Now, let's be super clear here. I'm not saying millionaires just hoard cash and never spend money. They absolutely do. But look at what they actually buy. They spend on things that give them a real return. They'll drop money on high-quality shoes that last 15 years instead of cheap ones that fall apart in 2. They invest in their personal health and wellness because you can't buy back a broken body, right? They spend heavily on books, courses, and mentors because one single good idea can literally be worth a lifetime of salary. And maybe most importantly, they buy back their own time by paying for things like cleaning, yard work, and taxes, so they can focus on building even more wealth. So ultimately, you're staring down two very different paths. If you've been playing that exhausting game of trying to look successful before you actually are, you're heading straight down path A. And that path leads to a closet totally stuffed with things you're still paying off, and a bank account that gives you crippling anxiety at 3 a.m. But path B, that is real freedom.
That's reaching a point in your life where a random Tuesday morning feels exactly like a Saturday simply because you never have to clock in again, unless you genuinely want to. So how do you get on path B? Well, here are 3 super practical steps you can literally start today. First, stop spending your hard-earned money to impress strangers who don't pay your bills and who definitely won't remember your fancy car 3 seconds after you drive by. Just stop. Second, use that opportunity cost rule we talked about. Before you make any purchase over $100, run the numbers forward 30 years. Ask yourself what it's really costing your future. And third, track your actual net worth every single month. Not your income, your net worth. It is the only number that tells you the absolute truth. But listen, you can't do this alone in a vacuum. You absolutely have to surround yourself with people who actually understand what real wealth looks like. The friends you spend the most time with will shape your spending habits way more than any fancy budget spreadsheet ever will. If your social circle is constantly in a race to upgrade their lifestyles, you are going to feel the pressure to sprint right alongside them. But if you surround yourself with grounded people who value financial discipline, building wealth honestly becomes effortless.
At the end of the day, the people who look the absolute most impressive from the outside are so often the ones secretly drowning on the inside, stressed to the max, up to their eyeballs in debt, just running on a treadmill from one payment to the next. Meanwhile, those people who look completely unremarkable, the ones in the dented sedans and the beat-up sneakers, they literally own the world. They just never felt the need to prove it to anyone. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Whose game are you really trying to play? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this changed how you look at wealth forever.